Well, hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining me for this week's iWoman Report. This past week has been an historic week for two very different reasons. First, Brittney Griner was sentenced by a Russian judge to 9 years in prison. We've been following that case here at iWoman, and we will have an update as well as an interview with international security expert Dr. Danielle Gilbert. And the same day as the devastating news surrounding Brittney Griner's sentencing came down, another big story that we've been following got a breakthrough. The 4 officers charged in the murder of Breonna Taylor in 2020 have officially been charged federally for violating her civil rights. We're going to be speaking with the powerhouse attorney who has been representing Breonna Taylor's family, Lonita Baker, who was also recently named president of the National Bar Association. But first, some exciting news for women out of the state of Colorado. Starting this week, Colorado will no longer charge sales tax on diapers or menstrual products. That savings for the people of Colorado per year is estimated to be about $9 million. Colorado is also one of the states that has remained on the side of choice for women in the battle over abortion rights as well. I happen to personally love Colorado as my choice to go skiing, but it's also well known as the state that has been very supportive of things like marijuana, abortion, and now savings on diapers and period products. Great job, Colorado. Well, the support for WNBA superstar Brittney Griner continues to grow, as does the outrage over her excessive 9-year sentence by a Russian judge for possession of 2 cartridges of hashish oil. The sentencing sent shockwaves from the White House to the world of sports, where an outpouring of support can be felt from her teammates, other professional athletes, and celebrities everywhere. You'll recall Brittney was encouraged to plead guilty to possession of illegal narcotics, thinking that it would lessen her sentence. Instead, she's been sentenced to serve 9 years in a penal colony in Russia, as well as to pay a fine of 1 million rubles, which is the equivalent of $16,000.
Final verdict is 9 years of imprisonment of the 9 million rubles penalty in the penal colony. And she will serve her term from the day of the announcement of this verdict.
Every time I watch that video, it just gives me chills because you're listening to the translated version, but imagine this is all taking place in Russian, and you can just see the look on Brittney's face. Well, Brittney's sentence comes after the United States and Russia spoke about a prisoner exchange. The initial deal discussed was to bring 2 Americans, Brittney Griner and former U.S. Marine Paul Whelan, home in exchange for 1 Russian, an arms dealer named Viktor Bout. It's been an ongoing conversation between the countries since June, and on Thursday, Russia confirmed for the first time that negotiations for a prisoner exchange were once again taking place between them and Washington. The WNBA and NBA released a joint statement as well, reaffirming their commitment to getting Brittney home safely. Her Phoenix Mercury teammates have been struggling with the news as well, while also having to continue playing games this season.
It's our sister. This is not some random Jane off the street. It's not anything we're politicizing. It's a human being, and this is our real life friend and real life sister.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, it's devastating.
It's devastating.
Yeah, you can't really say nothing other than that. I know personally, I'm just really proud to be a part of this group, and to watch the way that they showed up and came out and played. We approached the game tonight with a heavy heart, as we have every game this season.
Joining us now to talk about the Brittney Griner case as well as hostage taking in general and foreign relations is Dr. Danielle Gilbert. She's an international security expert. Dani, thank you so much for joining us on the iWoman Report today.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. I would imagine you've been following the case of Brittney Griner fairly closely. There's a lot of speculation that she's just become a bit of a pawn of war, and that this is unfair. What are your thoughts?
The timing and the circumstances of her arrest and her verdict and the sentence that she just received suggest that this is far more than a normal arrest, that she is being used for leverage by the Russian government. The fact that they charged her with international drug smuggling and that they're floating a possible prisoner swap for her release suggests to me that Brittney Griner is in effect a hostage.
What actually constitutes it being a hostage situation?
It's a really good question, and it's really vague. The Russian government arrested her, they charged her. The entire process has gone through their criminal justice system, which makes it, to some people, look like a legitimate arrest. But the fact that they are holding her for leverage, that they're asking for a prisoner in exchange for her release, makes this unlike a normal arrest that we might see. It's an example of a phenomenon that I call hostage diplomacy, where foreign states arrest foreigners under the guise of law to use them for political leverage. And it's the fact that they're holding her and asking for demands from the United States to condition her release that make this a hostage situation.
It's really interesting that a WNBA player could find herself caught up in something like this. What is the likelihood that this sentence could be carried out?
So the Russians are making it seem like they're going to hold her for the whole 9 years and that they're going to put her in a labor camp. These penal colonies are just awful, awful places with just egregious kind of circumstances that she might be in. And so the Russians are threatening to hold her for that whole time, in effect, to increase their leverage over the US government. What we do know is that the Biden administration has committed to negotiating for her release. They've put an offer on the table to get her back, as well as another American, Paul Whelan, who's serving a long sentence in Russia as well. And so they're going to be negotiating behind the scenes to make sure that she doesn't stay there anywhere close to 9 years.
And now the fact that she's a woman, does that play a role in this at all? Obviously she's high profile, so I could see, you know, if that was the intention of the Russian government, I could see why they might have targeted her. But the fact that she's a woman and having to go into, you know, this type of a situation and the likelihood that they could carry it out, does that just make it all the more worse?
One of the things that I'm really thinking about is the fact that she's openly gay. Russia is quite strict, quite nasty about LGBTQ individuals. And so we could expect her to face really harsh treatment by guards and fellow prisoners.
In your professional belief, your professional opinion, do you think that she was given a fair trial?
I don't think she was given a fair trial. The Russian criminal justice system is notoriously harsh. What I've learned is that more than 99% of criminal cases end in a conviction. And so we expected her to be convicted even before the trial began. But when she was able to testify, she noted that she was not given a translator when she was first arrested. She wasn't read her rights. She didn't even know precisely what she had done until days after she had been sitting in prison. And so those are not the kind of things that we come to expect in the United States about the rights that a prisoner is afforded when they're charged and undergoing a trial.
You do have a website. If anyone wants to reach out to you, how can they find you?
I do. Please feel free to visit my website. It's just danigilbert.com, DANIGILBERT. And there you can read more about my research, my teaching, and some of my public engagement.
Wonderful. Well, thank you again, Dani. I really appreciate you taking time out for us today. Let's hope for the best for Brittney Griner, and hopefully we don't have to meet under the circumstances of a person like this ever being in a situation like this again.
Absolutely. Thanks so much for having me.
Thank you very much. Have a great day. Brittney's legal team already stated that they will be filing an appeal. President Biden released a statement shortly after the sentence was announced, calling the verdict unacceptable and assured Americans that his administration will continue to work tirelessly and pursue every possible avenue to bring Brittney and Paul Whelan home safely as soon as possible. We'll, of course, continue to follow this case. For more information about how you can help make a difference, you can visit wearebg.com and sign the change.org petition to bring Brittney Griner home. All right, switching gears to the latest on the Breonna Taylor case in Louisville. Another big story that we've been following this past couple of years. Breonna Taylor was killed when officers stormed into her home in the middle of the night for no good reason. Initially, no charges were brought against the officers, but last week it was announced that federal charges have been brought against 4 officers involved in the murder of the 26-year-old Breonna Taylor.
The federal charges announced today allege that members of the Place-Based Investigations Unit falsified the affidavit used to obtain the search warrant of Ms. Taylor's home, that this act violated federal civil rights laws, and that those violations resulted in Ms. Taylor's death. Specifically, we allege that Ms. Taylor's Fourth Amendment rights were violated when defendants Joshua Janes, Kyle Meany, and Kelly Goodlatte sought a warrant to search Ms. Taylor's home knowing that the officers lacked probable cause for the search.
Following that announcement, the people of Louisville, Kentucky flooded the streets in celebration of finally seeing some accountability for the murder of EMT Breonna Taylor. Her mother, Tamika Palmer, was there along with her sister and many of the activists and supporters who've been with the family all along, fighting for justice ever since that horrible day in March of 2020.
Today's 874 days. What we've been seeing on day one, y'all learning what we've been seeing was the truth. That they shouldn't have been there and that Breonna didn't deserve that. Today's overdue, but it still hurts.
All right, and right now I'd like to bring on the woman who has stood behind Breonna Taylor's family since the very beginning, demanding justice for Breonna Taylor's family, Lonita Baker, who also was just named the president of the National Bar Association. Thank you so much, Lonita, for coming on the iWoman Report today.
Thank you for having me, Kat. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about these charges that were brought in the Breonna Taylor case. You've been fighting for 2 years now to try to get the state to do the right thing, and the Attorney General, of course, did not do that, but the federal government has now stepped in and filed charges, criminal charges against these officers. What charges were brought, first of all, and what does this mean?
Yeah, so against Joshua Janes, Cal Meany, and Brett Hankinson, they were actually charged with criminal civil rights violations, which led to Breonna Taylor's death. And so with those, they are facing life in prison. They are directly charged with causing Breonna's death, their actions causing Breonna's death. And then we had the officer who pled guilty to conspiracy to obstruction, so lying on the search warrant which was obtained to Breonna's home, and then also working to cover it up once the lie was discovered. We are excited. It's some semblance of justice. Since day one, Breonna's family has always wanted, for the people responsible for Breonna's murder to be held accountable, and this is a step in that direction.
Can you kind of rehash a little bit of what happened that night when Breonna Taylor was killed?
Yeah, so, Breonna had been out with her boyfriend, Kenny Walker, that went out on a date, and then went home and went to sleep. In the middle of the night, after midnight, they were awakened to loud banging on their door. And unbeknownst to them, it was police officers trying to get into her apartment. On what we now know was a search warrant that was filled with lies that they were able to get it. They were looking for someone completely different. The person who was the target of their investigation had already been arrested earlier that night, about an hour before Breonna was murdered. And so they didn't have any reason to be at Breonna's apartment, and that's part of those charges.
Why has Attorney General Daniel Cameron still not come forward and done what you would say, and what many have said, is the right thing?
He'd rather have the support of the Fraternal Order of Police unions than to do the right thing. We know we need police officers. We need to support police officers. But when police officers are doing the wrong thing, we have to hold those who are responsible accountable. Otherwise, we have, cops and robbers out here. It's not a good scenario.
I really hope, and I'm sure you do as well, that this will set the precedent, that these officers cannot get away with something like this any longer.
I agree. And I think that one thing we have to take note of is that this is one of the few cases where we've not had body camera or any type of video, and officers are still held accountable. So while it took longer than we would have liked, the fact that we do have indictments and there's not video where we've had an officer turnover and testify against her co-defendants, I think this is huge, and the step that we need to be moving, the direction we need to be moving.
Yeah. At the end of the day, a 26-year-old woman was murdered. She's killed. She's no longer here to defend herself or to live the life that she deserves. She was an EMT. She was an outstanding, upstanding citizen. She didn't deserve this. What is your greatest hope at this point for the family?
I hope that the officers do the right thing. I hope that they plead, and if they do decide to take it to trial, I pray that a jury, that the Department of Justice presents a strong case so that the jury convicts them and they are punished severely.
I do want to talk about your new role as the president of the National Bar Association. Again, congratulations, but what does that mean?
Yeah, so the National Bar Association is the nation's oldest and largest organization of Black attorneys in the country. We represent the interests of over 65,000 Black attorneys and judges. We do a lot of legislative work and lobbying for legislative change. And so with that, we're going to be fighting for election protection, criminal justice reform, economic equity, environmental justice, and educational justice. So I'm going to use my persona, my skills, my talent, and influence to take the National Bar Association to another level.
Well, thank you again for joining us on the iWoman Report. You are our change maker this week, so congratulations again on all of your accomplishments.
Thank you so much.
We at iWoman will never stop supporting those who support justice and equality for women and those who are often ignored, which is often minorities. If you have a story you would like to recommend, or an expert or change maker you think should be featured on our show, please DM us at iWomanTV or send us an email at info@iwoman.tv. And that brings me to my question of the day. This week's question involves a video that has surfaced on the web that you've probably seen of a woman in Atlanta being arrested by a police officer. Both of them are African American. From what we understand, the woman and the male friend of hers are hanging out in a park after hours talking. They didn't know the park closed at a certain time until the officer that you'll see in this video here approached them, and that's when things went downhill really fast. Take a look.
Sign the ticket, Mr. Brooks. I'm going to sign the ticket. Why am I being arrested? Can you please tell me why I'm being arrested?
Sir!
Oh my God! I'm so scared. My God, please, in the name of Jesus, please, God, in the name. Why am I being arrested, Mr. Brooks? I'm going to sign the ticket. Mr. Brooks, why am I being arrested? Why am I being arrested? I don't understand why I'm being arrested. Can you please tell me why I'm being arrested?
Turn around and put your hands behind your back.
Tell me why I'm being arrested. I have the right.
Do not tase her. Sir, do not tase her.
Oh my God.
Put your hands behind your back.
Do not tase her. Do not tase her. What are you tasing her for?
I didn't tase her.
Why are you pulling it out?
Put your hands
This
behind
is
your
she is
back.
not complying.
Put your
What are you
hands behind your
doing?
back.
So my question is, was the officer justified in arresting this woman when all she was doing is sitting in the park talking, not knowing that the park closed at a certain time? Now, to be fair, we don't know any other facts other than what you see in this video, but I can tell you it's going crazy online right now. From what we understand, the woman's from out of town. She was asking the officer for his name and badge number, which I would do the same, and I'm sure many of you would as well. Because for this case to escalate to the proportion that it seems that it did just feels unreasonable, uncalled for, and it feels to me at least like an abuse of power, especially when there are violent crimes, domestic assaults, and other more serious issues, life-saving issues that the police should be concerned about. That's just my 2 cents. But please let me know what you think by answering our question of the day on our social media at iWomanTV. And now to some celebrity news. You may have heard tennis superstar, my girl, Serena Williams, is preparing to retire. Well, specifically what she said in a Vogue interview is that she is transitioning away from tennis as she focuses on her business ventures and expanding her family.
I love playing though. It's amazing, but you know, it's like I can't do this forever. Sometimes you just want to try your best to enjoy the moments and do the best that you can.
Best of luck, Serena. Hopefully you'll still show up for the US Open later this month, because I'm a huge tennis fan and I come every year and I look forward to attending the tournament here in Queens every single year. And the Serena sisters just make it all the more exciting. All right, and finally, a major loss was felt this week in the entertainment world as Olivia Newton-John lost her battle to breast cancer. Best known for starring next to John Travolta in the original Grease, Olivia had been battling cancer since 1992. Our hearts go out to our entire family. Who doesn't have a favorite Olivia Newton-John song, right, everyone? I mean, we have, in our studio right now, we have a mix from super, I guess I'm the oldest, but super young up to me, and everybody has a favorite Olivia Newton-John song or a memory. I lived on Grease when I was a kid, so that's a huge loss to the entertainment world, and our hearts go out. And that brings me to my final thought of the day. Tomorrow is never promised, but today is an incredible opportunity to make a difference and stand up for what you believe in. Our world is facing unprecedented times, and it would be very easy right now to get discouraged or feel like nothing that you can do could make a difference. But I strongly disagree, and I believe each of us can and should do our part to make a difference and to make the world a better place. One of the things that all of the women we mentioned in our report today have in common is that each of them did their part to make the world a better place. Brittney Griner wrote a memoir called In My Skin, My Life on and Off the Basketball Court, addressing bullying and self-acceptance, something she personally struggled with her whole life. She also once sat out a game to protest the police killing of Breonna Taylor. And Breonna Taylor was an EMT, an emergency medical technician who dedicated her life and career to saving the lives of others. Serena Williams, among so many other things, launched the Serena Williams Fund to promote equality through education, gender and race disabilities, or anything else that stands in the way of people achieving their goals. And Olivia Newton-John founded the Olivia Newton-John Foundation to raise money for research in plant medicine to fight cancer. She also wrote a song and a book called Don't Stop Believing. Words we all should live by. That's going to do it for this iWoman Report. I want to thank all of you for joining us. Until the next time, please stay healthy, stay happy, and stay safe.